Hi all. Oh, some technical difficulties there. I do it this way. I just charge my fully charged computer. Save myself the hassle. So I finished the video last night of necessary conditions, and so tonight what I'll be doing is going through the cards that are here. I already completed 3 of them. So just for LSAT studying on YouTube purposes, I was able to write some of them down. So the first one is no X's are Y's, i.e. not both. The statement no X's are Y's mean that something cannot both be X and Y, or stated another way. X and X Let me go to what I got correct. Okay, no X's are Y's. So they said means that something cannot be both an X or Y, or stated another way. X and Y. I wrote that too quick. I said X and E. X and Y are mutually exclusive. To diagram a no statement, there's the rules a part of this. So the rule is step 1 is to pick a variable, i.e. X or Y, and make it the sufficient condition. Step 2, negate the other variable and make it the necessary condition. When, that's sufficient to necessary. The rule when introduces a sufficient condition, the other part of the necessary condition. Unless, step 1, unless introduces a necessary condition. So the part of the sentence that follows unless will be the necessary condition. Step 2, negate the other part of the sentence and make it the sufficient condition. And now I'm on if but only if. That was for unless. Negate the other part, make it a sufficient condition. And then didn't I do a next one? When, yeah, I did say when. It introduces a sufficient condition in the other part of the necessary condition. Of this, the other part of the statement is the necessary condition. Sometimes your brain goes faster than your fingers can. I'm trying to keep spaces between it so it can be neat and visually legible to read. Because at times, especially when you're doing the diagrams, at least for the video explanations, it can get very illegible because it gets so bulky, and not only because it's dark, but like it just gets crammed together. I do have my GoodNotes on my iPad, but like I like the handwriting here, so I guess when this fills up, then I'll switch over to GoodNotes. I really do enjoy handwriting my notes on paper. And the beginning of this book was my case briefs. We got Philip versus Town of West Springfield. This is in Professor Miles' class at VCU. Rick versus Bulge, wrongful action. Rick versus Bulge. Shorter versus Dury. I think we skipped a page here. So with the case briefs, you know, it's facts, the issue, the rule, relevant law, application, analysis, and conclusion. All of that great stuff. So now I'm on if, let me make sure I go back. If but only if. Oh, I guess not. Well, let me go here. Okay, well, when you close it out, it just changes the cycle that it's in. But this should be fine. So if but only if. The rule if but only if indicates that each variable is both a sufficient and a necessary condition. If but only if is diagrammed with a double arrow. Or I could have moved back. And I need to turn on the light because it's getting absolutely atrocious for me to see. The next sufficient and necessary condition is without. Step 1. Without introduces a necessary condition, so the part of the sentence that follows without will be the necessary condition. Step 2. Negate the other part of the sentence and make it the sufficient condition. Only. The rule only introduces a necessary condition. The other part of the statement is the sufficient condition. Where. The rule where introduces a sufficient condition. The other part of the statement is a necessary condition. People who. The rule people who introduces a sufficient condition. The other part of the statement is the necessary condition. all. The rule all introduces a sufficient condition The other part of the statement is the necessary condition. Wherever the rule wherever introduces a sufficient condition. The other part of the statement is the necessary condition. Any. The rule any. And I'm going to get a highlighter to highlight this after. This, I'm going to guess that it introduces sufficient condition. Okay. It introduces a sufficient condition, and the other part of the statement is a necessary condition. Whenever. As we've been understanding, there's a pattern here. We know that whenever it introduces a sufficient condition and the other part of the statement is a necessary condition. The rule every introduces a sufficient condition. The other part of the statement is a necessary condition. only if the rule only if introduces a necessary condition. The other part of the statement is a sufficient condition. Kind of similar to if, kind of similar to only, as well as, well, if but only if is the rule. If but only if indicates that each variable is both a sufficient and a necessary condition. If but only if is diagrammed with a double arrow. So it's similar to only. Only if. I like those thicker lead pencils because this one tends to break very frequently. If and only if. There's if but only if, and there's if and only if. Let's see if it has a similar. Yeah, it is similar. So the if and only if indicates that each variable is both a sufficient and necessary condition. Either X or Y, i.e. either or. The statement either X or Y means that at least one of X or Y must exist. To diagram an either or statement, the rule, step 1, pick a variable either X or Y and make it the necessary condition. Step 2, negate the other variable and make it the sufficient condition. Only versus the only. The rule while only by itself introduces a necessary condition, the only actually introduces a sufficient condition. Only when the rule only when introduces a necessary condition. The other part of the statement is a sufficient condition. I'm gonna start highlighting just for clarity purposes. When numbering and then highlighting. The rule each introduces a sufficient condition. The other part of the statement is a necessary condition. The rule only where introduces a necessary condition. The other part of the statement is a sufficient condition. So I know onlys basically introduce necessaries. If the rule, if introduces a sufficient condition. As we know, the other part of the statement is the necessary condition. There's 21 of them. 21 conditions that I had to highlight. And I wrote each definition out so I can understand and recognize it when it's in the text and I do these questions. Now, missing premise drills. We got argument completion drills and sufficient necessary questions. So I'm also gonna write these out. Missing premise drills. These are 30 of them. So this one I'm not gonna have as many spaces for page purposes. I don't know how I'm really gonna write this out, but I'm gonna write it out. I'm gonna figure it out. Today's August 30th. P, X is not, premise isn't, X is, it's not C, P, I don't know if I just want to be writing anything now. It's a little bit overwhelming, so I'm going to try to understand it and then go back. I'm gonna take a break and eat and then come back to this, and I'm probably not gonna go live. And I finished watching The Chi, so that's a done deal. I'm just gonna write these out simply just to try to gain some visual understanding of how this is written. For the most part, I think I'm catching a hang of it, but the more I write these premise drills out, I'm gonna begin to understand. And then I can hop into the argument completion drills and then sufficient necessary questions. So without further ado, didn't I do some? I'm gonna eat. So yeah, I don't want to throw y'all a bunch of letters to overwhelm the live, because it's like, okay, now she's speaking another language. P, premise, X, arrow, not C. Like, yeah. It's like I'm filling in code and with these prompts. So I'm gonna be very diligent during this study. So I was gonna pause, but then I done got addicted to this, just to understand the structure. You really understand by sitting quietly and writing and observing how the patterns develop. So that's no benefit for the live. Number 5, I'll get around to that soon. But yeah, thank you for watching, and come back to another study session for LSAT prep, or come back to another video. I'm not sure if I want to do a housing vlog because I have one and then deleted. I was thinking about doing it over again, or maybe like a video of me, like how I write my music, like a breakdown of my creative processes for my music sessions. But yeah, bye guys. Hopefully you enjoyed watching or learned something from my sufficient necessary conditions final videos. Bye.